that is the type of bass we are going to make in this video. Now today I'm going to use Alchemy, but the techniques we're going to use here can be applied to many different synths. If you're using Serum, Hive, Massive, you can apply the theory and design your own basses. You're just going to get a different sound and different performance. And today's tutorial is sponsored by DistroKid, but a little more on them later in the video. This is the Peace Walker break from Soulful DnB Volume 1, linked below. Effect-wise on this track is basically nothing, just a compressor, and all this compressor is doing is dipping when the kick of the break comes in. So it's all inside the Alchemy synth. So let's reset Alchemy. We can go to File, Initialize, and it will just give us a saw wave. One of the first things we want to do here is control the voicing. We only ever really want it to have a singular voice. Now this doesn't affect unison, but this is how many notes can be played simultaneously. And then we want one note to move into another, which is legato. So in terms of voices over here, we're going to switch that over to legato. And then the number of voices that it can produce at any one time, we're going to switch that to 1. Your particular synth, this will maybe say 1, or it might say mono, which means the same thing essentially. And then we've got a glide time. We can do this in rate or time, depends what you like. Time for milliseconds, we can work it out to be very rhythmic with a track, so it can move in say 16ths or 128ths or 100 or 1/64 kind of timing wise. What we can do there is figure out those timings much like you would for attack and release on a compressor, or we can do rate, which is a percentage. Just a little bit of a percentage in here can be kind of nice, but we'll tailor it with the sound. Now fundamentally this is going to be built off of the saw. Here in Alchemy, to access more parameters for my oscillator, I have to go into a separate menu. And in the separate menu here we can now see some extra features, and we've got something in here called sync. We've also got our unison and our detune. Really useful things. I mean, the very first thing we're going to do here is turn our detune up. Now detune starts to apply in Alchemy before it even reaches 2. You can hear it here. So we're definitely at 2 voices before it displays it, but there we are. And when we bring the detune down, they become more in line or more out of phase. Today's video is sponsored by DistroKid. They let me get my music out to all of the major distributors, and they do that at a price an independent artist can easily afford. If you're ready to get your music or beats out there and want to release an unlimited amount of music each year, check the link in the description below for a discount off of your first year of unlimited distribution with DistroKid. Something I like to do here is on my channel have the gain channel strip, or something that allows you to sum to mono. And the reason being, I'll often build the sound in mono, because if it sounds spot on in mono, it's going to be great when we finally go back to stereo. So for now, we're going to turn that on and continue to build the sound, and this will help us make better decisions when choosing things like the detune. Because we're now summed to mono, we want it to sound great in mono. And then when we turn the mono off, we get that nice width, and we know it also works and is compatible in mono. Now to utilise and get that ripping and tearing, we're going to use the sync amount here. And to do that, we're going to link it up to an ADSR. When it's selected, it goes blue like so. We can switch this on over here, which is our modulation window. If you'd like to learn more about the ins and outs of Alchemy, linked below is an entire Alchemy masterclass for you. We can here select an ADSR, and we'll do a new ADSR because we don't want to use the one that's default assigned to the volume. Now our depth here, we can do a couple of things with sync. We can have it so it pushes up, or so that it starts up and comes back down. I find pushing it up is kind of a nice feature for this type of bass sound. So when we press a key now, like F, well, it just instantly plays to that ripping part. We want this to move up a little bit in time, so we're going to use our attack here. And in Alchemy, you can adjust the curves here, so we can have a nice linear curve up there. Depending how hard we push it, I'm going to a different effect. I want that to be even slower, but I want it to be in sync with the track as well. So we can use this sync feature here, and this will give us intervals within the music. And these are basically our beats over a bar. So we're going to take 1/8 of a bar here to get up to where we want to be. That gives us a nice starting point. It can be a little bit longer over the course of a bar if we want it to be. And considering the tempo of DnB, this can work quite nicely. And you're just going to dial it in here with the depth to where you want it to go. We can make the decision to have more voices if we like. But the more complex the sound gets, the more it starts to fade away. Oddly enough here, quality setting can be really important, and I found actually in Alchemy to bring it down to good actually gives us the best results when doing this. You can hear a huge difference there. If we bring it up to Ultra, it does bring technically a better saw wave together, but it's a lot busier and muddier. So good actually helps us out a lot here. Now the detune is going to have a much greater effect as well, so we decide where we want that to sit. Now the other thing we can do with this is put an LFO onto it instead. The LFO lets it have that continuously back and forth ripping sound. So let's do a synced LFO to say 1/4, and we'll give it about the same kind of movement. Now it rips in the beat of the music. We can change the sync to make it more aggressive. Or a little slower. 1/4 works quite well here. Now another thing we want to do here is we're going to have a separate sub that gets untouched by everything else. Say you're using Serum, you use the direct sub out. We have to be a little bit more fancy with our routing in Alchemy. But what we're going to do firstly is make sure we've not got any excess sub in this saw pattern. So we've got a filter section down here. We're going to switch on that first filter, and we're going to use a high pass 24 dB slope. And we're going to take the cutoff nice and back to somewhere around our snare region in our track, something like this. So we've got kind of the body of it, but not all the weight in the bottom. Now we're going to use oscillator B, and we're just going to put ourselves a sine wave in here and go load VA basic and sine. As you can feel, that gives us loads of weight straight away. We're going to do the opposite with it. Even though it's a sine wave, we might distort it a bit later. So we're going to control it with a filter, and we're going to bring this filter right back so we never get anything up into the 500 Hz range. Might want to adjust your volume and bring the sub up a little bit. And you might need to bring your saw down a bit. Work out the balance that's best for you and your synth. Here we want loads at low end. Now the routing that we've got to work out is relatively simple. It involves the effects system here in Alchemy. So we go into effects, we've got main A, B, C and D. We can route different effects chains from different oscillators or different filters. Now to save making all the effects chain again, I've literally just gone and saved it, so I can simply go into File, Preset, Shredder Distortion, looks like that. And we're going to put that on effects channel A. Distortion, the wave shaper, phaser, convolution, reverb, and then the main effects send at the end. For oscillator A, we need that to go into effects channel A. So we can set that to F1 FXA and turn it all the way to FXA. We're now going to have a very different sound. So like the sub, we've still just got this big weighty sub, not really doing anything. And that's because that goes out filter 1 and it avoids all the effects here on A. The saw wave gets sent out to FXA. Now we need to look at the ADSR and like overall performance of the sound. When we let go of a note, it picks far too long to die. We really need to fix that up. So if we go into global here, we've got master volume here. I don't know why it says master volume, because really this one up here is, but master volume for the argument's sake of it. And we want to take the decay right the way down. Now we don't want it to go to 0 because it causes clicks and pops, but we do want a little bit of a tail off here in the release, just a tiny bit. Remember, we can adjust these curves. We can actually give it a curve down so it is almost instant. Now we can drop those notes in really, really quickly. Let's see where we're at so far. Now for the melody we've got in, we need to drop both of the oscillators via 12 semitones. So we're just going to do that. And that's just generally because shorter keyboards, we can't play the lower melody. There's a couple of things we can do to really change up how it sounds overall. Believe it or not, a lot of this comes from the convolution reverb. If we take the dry away completely, this is actually what we've got going on. If we bump the wet up, we get a load more washed out sound in the background. We can just literally flip through. We've got a whole bunch of presets in here, or convolution options. And we can get a nice kind of vibe going by dialing it in this way. You can then make use of the cutoff and decide how much of the signal actually gets through. Bear in mind we don't really want any of the low end. And then blend our dry in with it. Sounding pretty good. How about now if we take off our sum to mono? Something I would like to do is in the main section here, I'm going to add the EQ and just tweak that a little bit. I'll put the 3-band on here. There's something going on in like the 300 Hertz range, I think. So we'll narrow that down, give that a big boost so I can find it. Just going to take that down like that. And probably around here, have a little boost there. Play around with the glide time a bit, have it so it sits a bit more in line with the overall track, but we've got these big long changing notes. I think we can get away with quite a long glide time here. Now, one last thing we could maybe do if we wanted to make this a bit more of the kind of like modern wobble bass, or use it for a sudden change up in the track but still have the same tonality, we could use the filter on here. We could again use a 24 dB filter, but instead maybe go for like the rich low pass, pull the cutoff right back. And we need to make sure now we need to make sure that everything runs into it still. So to do this, we'd have to automate or change this so it now goes to F1 and then F1 goes into FXA. And then on the cutoff control here, we could assign ourselves another LFO, give ourselves a new LFO, keep that in sync too, just give that a bit of movement. Instead of just having a sine wave, a good way to have it so it always opens up is to use a saw. So we could go in here and we could do the ramp down, for example, but have it so the depth goes backwards and then let's go 1/8. Just adjust the cutoff as you like. Obviously, if you want the whole sound to be affected by the filter, then we need to adjust it so we've got a similar mix as well. You can do F1 to A here, make sure this is going in the same place. Still wanted to keep the sine clean, what you could do is send it to filter 2 and set up filter 2 with the same kind of parameter as up here, so link it to the same LFO, but then just send this out to FX main and keep these on parallel rather than serial. Serial means one's going to go in. If you wanted to download these two bass presets, I'll be adding them into the Alchemy course, which is available and linked down below. Very much thank you for watching the video. If you'd like to see more Alchemy videos, do let me know in the comments and I'll continue to add more. Otherwise, you can check out the ones on screen right now for even more info.